Interest rates do not matter. Before you get offended, let me take a couple minutes and share what I mean. I'm going to share with you today something personal that I've gone through in the last couple of months, why interest rates do not matter, and a technique that you can use, whether you're a buyer or a realtor, to guarantee an interest rate 2% lower than what the market is bearing. So with that being said, I'm Jay Robbins, 23-year mortgage professional. Let's get into it. First, I want to share with you something personal that I went through. It was pretty traumatic, but based on my close to 48 years of living, I understand the importance of patience, keeping calm, having a calm mind, having a calm nervous system, making sure that I'm taking care of myself to be able to handle and manage what has happened. Most of you know that I have a toddler who's about to be 3 years old in January. Got started a little late, as you can probably see. My second son was actually born this past year, February of 2022, which happened to be on the day that I turned 47, so it was a great birthday gift. Fast forward 5 months later, we felt that it was important to take him in to have something tested with his heart, which we found out that he needed heart surgery within 5 or 6 weeks of that moment. So the journey began, and after a lot of research and due diligence, and we were able to get a heart surgery done for my 7-month-old son. We are so grateful and blessed that it worked out. He's healing. It's been 5 weeks since the procedure has happened. Thankfully, he is healing and doing fantastic. And I want to thank everyone who has sent their prayers and high vibration energy, because it has helped. Now let's get into why rates do not matter. Rates do matter in the sense that when someone is purchasing a home or refinancing, it increases their monthly obligation, or if you're purchasing, it decreases the purchasing power. What I'm referring to is math. Some of you may know and remember that back in the 80s, interest rates were in the teens. And right now, we're still less than half of that. But this comes down to math, and I'll give you an example. If a buyer, when I speak to a buyer, one of the first things that I like to ask, in doing this for 23 years, is what is your comfort level of budget? What's that number? What's that monthly obligation before it becomes too uncomfortable for you that you're comfortable with? How much cash are you allocating to use for purchasing the property? So once we have the budget and once we have the amount of cash that's being used, we can then back into what someone can shop for. Let's assume that the borrower says, I have a budget of $2,500 a month. They go searching for a property. Let's say that $2,500 a month gets them something between $300,000 and $400,000. Just depends on where you live and taxes, insurance, and all of that. If, let's say, the buyer goes to buy a property, the interest rate is very low, let's just say 2%. But because of taxes and insurance, the mortgage obligation ends up being $3,500, $1,000 higher than budget. That's a scenario where a 2% interest rate does not matter. Now let's flip it. Let's assume that the same buyer wants a $2,500 budget. They're going to buy the house of their dreams, and the interest rate is much higher, but the mortgage obligation with taxes and insurance comes in at a mortgage obligation with mortgage, taxes, insurance, etc. of $2,300. Now remember, the budget was $2,500. With a 2% interest rate, that particular property commanded a $3,500 payment. With this other property, a 10% interest rate, let's say, commanded a $2,300 payment, even though the rate was, let's say, 10%. What I'm sharing with you is, as long as a home buyer is in budget, as long as you're very clear on what the budget is, and you're able to find the home that you love, that is a big example of why interest rates do not matter. The good news, in my opinion, is that we're probably going to see a lower rate opportunity in the next 2 or 3 years. meaning that anyone who refinanced at a higher rate or who purchased at a higher rate may have an opportunity in the next couple of years to drop it. Now, I can't predict the future, and full disclosure, no one really knows what the rates are going to be and when, but based on history shows as the rates have gone up, there's going to be a certain point where the rates are going to go down and there's going to be a refinance opportunity. That's why interest rates don't matter. It's a perspective. It's certainly food for thought. Here is a way to guarantee an interest rate that is 2% lower than what the market is bearing. It's called a 2-1 buy down. A 2-1 buy down is an interest rate that becomes 2% lower in year number 1. In year number 2, it's 1% lower, and then year number 3 and forward, it's what the market was bearing. Giving you an example, if you're purchasing a home and your interest rate that you qualify for at this particular moment, and we're in October of 2022, let's say the interest rate is a flat 7%. That's what you qualify for. A 2-1 buy down gives you the ability to start out with an interest rate at 5% year 1. In year 2, the interest rate is 6%, and in year 3, it's 7% on for the rest of the 30 years. Now, this is different than normal discount points where you're paying points to buy down the interest rate. And here's an example of how that is. Let's say the cost of buying down an interest rate using discount points is 3%. So your 7% interest rate now becomes 6%. You paid 3 percentage points of the loan to get your interest rate from 7 to 6. That's a traditional normal buy down. A 2-1 buy down with the same cost of 3% buys your rate down to 5%. How do you get this 3%? Because it's starting to shift to a buyer's market, meaning there's less buyers in the market because of interest rate. Sellers are starting to become more flexible. This is a huge benefit for sellers and realtors. It's important you also know this, not only on the buying side, but if you're listing property, you don't have to drop the price 5 and 10% to get movement. If you market your listing with language like buyer for this property, learn how to get an interest rate 2% lower. A lot of the reason the market is slow is because there's less buyers. There's less buyers because the interest rates have gone up and a lot of buyers are nervous about purchasing something with high rates or can't afford what they want because the rates are too high. So a solution is to get the seller to pay the 3% so the buyer doesn't have to. So instead of the seller dropping the listing price 5 or 10%, they're keeping the same listing price, but just doing a 3% seller concession. Now, what's the benefit? Well, the benefit for the seller is they've only contributed 3% of their listing price versus 5 or 10%, which can be many, many thousands of dollars. What's valuable for the buyer is the buyer gets to use that 3% to get an interest rate that is 2% lower than what the market is bearing. So it's a win-win for everyone. To recap, thank goodness my son is doing well, and I thank you again for all the well wishes. Rates do not matter. It's not the number of the interest rate, it's what is your intention. Is there a home out there, regardless of rate, that will give you the payment that feels good for you, knowing there could be a refinance opportunity? And then number 3, the 2-1 buy down. Getting a seller to pay 3% toward closing costs so you can buy down your interest rate 2% in year 1, 1% in year 2, and then back to normal in year 3. Maybe at that time is when you can refinance. And the seller, as a result, doesn't have to lower their listing price, which saves them a lot of money. I want to let you know that I am here for you. I'm offering complimentary consultations. If you or someone you know is interested in buying a home or refinancing, anytime between now and even up to the next year or so, it would be my pleasure to help create a mortgage planning strategy that makes sense and feels good. I hope this has been valuable. Until next time, this is Jay Robbins.